53M transformed my son into a stranger, but his unexpected plea changed everything. The moment Ethan received the letter, it tore through their modest life like a meteor, a scholarship to a prestigious university, an endowment of $53 million backing it. Sarah shook her head in disbelief as she read the words again. How could her son, who had always struggled to fit in, suddenly be thrust into a world of privilege? The excitement that bubbled within their small living room clashed with an undercurrent of dread. The very foundation of their lives, built from late-night study sessions, shared meals, and hard-earned lessons about grit and love, felt precarious now. Weeks rolled on, and as excitement transformed into reality, Sarah began to feel like a distant spectator in her own life. Ethan buzzed with zeal about his new friends, people draped in finery, exploring gourmet dining, and indulging in experiences she had only read about. Conversations that once ran deep now skimmed superficially on the surface. She watched with a mix of pride and heartbreak as his interest shifted from the simple joys of their humble life to the glimmering allure of status and trends. With every gradual transformation, a nagging ache settled within her, tightening around her heart like an iron band. She hesitated, questioning herself. Wasn't this what she had always dreamed of for him? Yet with each passing day, the distance between mother and son grew, their shared laughter replaced by awkward silences. She couldn't help but fear that the essence of who her son was, the value she had instilled in him, the sacrifices she'd made, was being washed away in a tide of new expectations and dazzling distractions. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure mounted as Ethan excelled academically, but each triumph felt like another weight added to his shoulders. Every time he called home, with a cheer in his voice meant to hide the shadow lurking behind it, Sarah braced herself. She saw the flash of excitement in his eyes, but it felt like looking at a stranger. Home-cooked meals and heartfelt talks were fading into mere artifacts of a nostalgic past. Then Ethan faced a crisis that rocked their world. His phone call was different, his voice trembling, the weight of something deeper spilling over. "Mom," he said, feeling trapped by the very privilege that had once seemed a gift. As he revealed the loneliness that lurked beneath the surface of status and accolades, Sarah felt her heart race. He was unraveling in ways she had not anticipated, and fear gripped her once more. Could they take this moment of raw honesty, the pain of alienation, and pull themselves back together? Or had the distance become too vast? As they faced each other in the room she had labored to build into a home, uncertainty hung heavily in the air. Could they reclaim the pieces before it was too late? What would it take to find their way back to the warmth that had once defined them? The question lingered: what happens next? The silence was deafening, and they both knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey fraught with deeper revelations and hidden truths. Ethan's vulnerability shattered the barriers that had grown between them, but uncertainty loomed like an uninvited guest. As they both sat in the dim light of their living room, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Could she be the anchor he needed to navigate this tempestuous shift? Trusting her instincts, she reached out to him. "Ethan, we can talk about anything. I'm still here," she said softly, attempting to breach the wall that had formed. His eyes met hers, shimmering pools of apprehension and longing. "It all feels overwhelming. I thought this would be a breakthrough, but it's pushing me away from who I am." The honesty in his admission washed over her like a bomb, igniting a spark of determination within. She realized that this was their moment to redefine their relationship, to rediscover the bond obscured by wealth and expectations. Days turned into weeks as Sarah worked to peel back the layers of transformation that had distanced them. She invited Ethan to help her with projects around the house, suggesting they cook meals together, simple, homemade dishes echoing their past. Initially hesitant, Ethan gave in, perhaps out of nostalgia or a desire to reclaim a fragment of what made him feel grounded. Yet, as they mixed ingredients and shared chopped vegetables, laughter began to punctuate their silence. For the first time in a long while, it felt as if they were rediscovering their rhythm. But the scholarship saga wasn't over. As Ethan tackled his classes, grappling with newfound expectations, He stumbled into a moral crossroads. He noticed a peer, Jordan, struggling to maintain his grades amidst the whirlwind of social pressures that enveloped their elite circle. Ethan's gut twisted as he recognized himself in Jordan. A reminiscence of his old self, battling insecurity under the weight of expectations he never asked for. Should he act? After a sleepless night grappling with doubt, he set his mind to confronting it. The next day, as he walked through the campus, confidence and purpose mingled within him. He approached Jordan, inviting him to form a study group, a seemingly simple gesture that would unravel intricate threads of connection. It was his moment to reflect the values instilled in him: kindness, empathy, and the importance of community over competition. The effort felt good, but it didn't erase the lingering shadows of isolation. After several late-night study sessions filled with camaraderie, and the gradual mending of confidence in both, Ethan felt an ember of belonging ignite within him. Though fragile, it was there, and it kindled a desire to fight against the looming pressure to conform to societal expectations. Meanwhile, Sarah observed this transformation from a distance. Each time she saw Ethan smile or laugh, it felt like a tender victory. Yet she feared that this was just a temporary reprieve. How long could this newfound network hold him? Would he slip once again into the isolation after succumbing to competition? As if sensing her thoughts, Ethan approached her one evening, a question burning in his eyes. "Mom, do you think I'm losing myself? Can I navigate this world without losing who I am?" Sarah sighed, feeling the weight of her own worries reflected in his voice. Eager to provide reassurance yet unsure herself, she decided to be honest. "It's a journey, Ethan. You're still you. But it will take an effort to remember that amidst all this, we're in it together." Together. A simple word layered with profound implications. Could they truly navigate the challenges ahead as a united front, reshaping their individual identities while reaffirming their bond? Both felt the push and pull, a looming necessity for deeper conversations and rediscovered truths. As they sat in the afterglow of shared understanding, a new thought took root in Ethan's mind. Perhaps beyond personal resilience, he was on the verge of confronting something significant: an ideological struggle within his social circle that challenged the very values he wanted to uphold. What if he took the plunge to lead others, to inspire a collective shift away from superficiality? The time had come to face the true essence of his identity. Would he rise to the occasion or retreat once more into the shadows of privilege? The feelings of anticipation crackled in the air, and the crucial question lingered: what will be his next move? Ethan paced his room, the evening sun casting elongated shadows that danced across his walls. The decision loomed like a specter, one that would determine not just his path forward, but also the kind of person he would become. The gentle hum of the refrigerator juxtaposed against the tumult in his mind, a reminder of the ordinary life he had once found comfort in. Should he lead? The notion came with potential for connection but also the risk of alienation. He could almost feel the weight of judgment from his peers, each whisper of doubt hovering like an ominous cloud. He had witnessed their entitlement, masked in casual indifference to the struggles that others faced. Yet, seeing Jordan's struggles stirred something deeper within him, a fleeting hint of courage. Ethan grabbed his notebook, flipping through pages filled with thoughts and plans. Notes from his own experiences mixed with reflections on the things he felt most passionate about: empathy, vulnerability, community. Each scribble fostered a nagging question: would mapping out his ideas translate into action that inspired change? Or would he be deemed a pretender, merely a product of the privilege he was trying to escape? The night wore on, and questions swirled in his head like leaves caught in a whirlwind. He picked up his phone, searching for Jordan's number, a digital thread connecting them amid the chaos. Should he reach out? Letting his impulsive side take control, he typed a message inviting Jordan to meet and talk about the study group and, perhaps more importantly, their common struggles. The response came with an unexpected quickness. Jordan seemed eager but curious as to Ethan's motivations. Each ping of the phone sent a jolt through him, excitement mixed with anxiety. What if his invitation led to scrutiny rather than solidarity? The next day, as they sat in the library surrounded by towering stacks of books, the atmosphere buzzed with an energy that felt new. They exchanged stories about academic pressures that confined them in a bubble of pretense. Jordan opened up about his family, the weight of expectation, and the sheer vulnerability of admitting success felt out of reach. Ethan could relate all too well. It echoed the struggles of his own heart as they dove into an intense study session. Ethan proposed an idea that felt both revolutionary and terrifying: organizing casual meetups where they could share not just academic challenges but also personal stories. Would others resonate with that theme of authenticity? Would they reject it outright? In that moment, it felt like the first rays of a dawning realization: the potential for growth existed not just in isolation but within the vulnerability of connection. Yet, doubt crept in, gnawing at his resolve. Would he risk his reputation? As he glanced at Jordan, who was now scribbling notes with fervor, hope flickered amid the uncertainty. Ethan recognized this was his chance to challenge his own comfort zone. But would he follow through? As he left the library, the uncertainty hung heavy. Each step echoed the hesitation of uncharted territory, but the urge to confront it burned brighter than before. He recalled Sarah's words about journeys, and it became clear that stepping into a leadership role could be met with turmoil but also immense opportunity for personal evolution. The day came when Ethan would face his classmates, ready to propose the idea, his first real act of defiance against the isolating norms. It all felt surreal as he prepared for the impending confrontation, but alongside fear, a sense of determination surged. This was more than a desire to belong. It was a calling to redefine what it meant to thrive in a world dictated by expectations. Would he rise to the occasion, or would the fear of rejection send him retreating once again? This moment would determine not just his future, but also how he viewed himself in a world cloaked in shadows of privilege and expectation. The auditorium loomed ahead, its doors seemingly whispering about the choice he was about to make. Ethan inhaled deeply, ready to step into the unknown, his heart racing with the pulse of possibility. As Ethan pushed open the heavy doors of the auditorium, a cacophony of voices swirled around him. The murmurs of his classmates bounced off the cold, sterile walls, filling the space with an electricity that both exhilarated and paralyzed him. His palms felt clammy and his breath quickened. This was at the moment where he would either solidify his resolve or succumb to his insecurities. The stage felt imposing, a spotlight illuminating the platform like a beacon meant to expose his every doubt. He could be seen, dissected, assessed by eyes he both craved approval from and feared judgment of. Glancing at Jordan, who had joined him, Ethan saw a spark of encouragement in his friend's gaze. It stirred something within him, a potent cocktail of hope and trepidation. "Hey, you got this," Jordan whispered, surprisingly calm, grounding Ethan amid the tempest of his thoughts. Those 3 words glimmered like a lifebuoy thrown into turbulent waters. Dismissing the pang of fear, he stepped up to the microphone, his heart pounding a steady rhythm in his chest. Forcing himself to meet the gazes of his peers, Ethan began. "I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while." His voice trembled slightly, but he pushed forward, each word creating a link between his trembling anxiety and the passionate ideas he had nurtured in his notebooks. He described the concept of casual meetups, a blend of academic collaboration and personal storytelling. He could feel a mix of skepticism and intrigue ripple through the audience. The frowns of indifference on a few faces were met with nods of encouragement from others. This was the unpredictable nature of leadership. It didn't come with guarantees, only the promise of growth through vulnerability. "Those of us here were often caught up in a race against ourselves," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "But what if we paused? What if we could support each other, not just as students but as people struggling with the weight of expectations like Jordan and I have?" He could see a few classmates lean in, drawn by the sincerity in his voice and the urgency in his proposal. At that moment, doubt began to diminish under the warmth of collective curiosity. Perhaps they too were tired of the pretense. The next few minutes felt like an eternity as he presented his vision, feeling the rhythm of their responses, ebbing and flowing like waves. With every nod, every questioning eyebrow, Ethan found clarity. This was more than leading. It was about embracing shared experiences. He wasn't just talking. He was extending an invitation into a space that could foster genuine connections. But as he wound down, the reality of what he had proposed settled in. The challenge ahead wouldn't just be logistical. It would demand emotional investment. Facilitating true sharing meant confronting insecurities, not just his but those of his peers. Would they be able to truly open up? And what if the effort left him exposed, misjudged by classmates accustomed to maintaining facades? As he stepped away from the microphone, A mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursed through him. The auditorium held the echoes of his proposal, and the uncertain repercussions that loomed ahead. Jordan's eyes sparkled with approval, but that reassurance didn't erase the reality of the road before them. Would his peers embrace this vulnerability, or would they slip back into the guise of indifference? The aftershocks of his decision stirred a tumult of possibilities within him. Ethan sensed he had crossed a boundary, but also, perhaps unintentionally, opened a door to deeper questions. They were all still leaning toward their own versions of authenticity, but what if those versions were still anchored in silence? The dawning realization made him shiver. This act of bravery could lead to something profound, or it could unravel into uncharted complications. As the buzz of conversation filled his ears, Ethan knew the pivotal moment had passed. But the true test lay ahead. Would he continue to guide this journey through discomfort, or would fear take root again? The echoes of his initiative rang in his mind, ushering him toward a realm of possibility, just as daunting as it was exhilarating. And as he moved through the crowds, questions about his own limits began to surface. Facing the expectations of others was only the beginning. What if the real struggle was finding a voice amid the roar of alienation? And could he authentically lead others, including himself, through this emerging chaos? Moving through the crowd, Ethan felt both buoyed and haunted by the gravity of his initiative. Surrounding conversations reverberated around him, but his focus narrowed to his own swirling thoughts. Would anyone truly engage with their fears and share openly? Could he rock the boat enough to foster real change rather than just temporary distraction? Jordan's encouraging smile lingered in his peripheral vision, yet its warmth could not quiet the burgeoning anxiety inside Ethan. The empty chairs scattered throughout the auditorium reminded him of missed opportunities. What if his classmates returned to their quiet corners, unwilling to break the silence that cloaked their insecurities? Spotting Ava, a quiet girl known for her poignant poetry, he approached her, curiosity punctuating his strides. She had always seemed hidden beneath layers of complexity, and he sensed she might carry hidden stories. "Hey, what did you think?" he asked, his voice steady yet his stomach twisted with anticipation. She hesitated before responding, folding her arms as if to protect herself. "I thought it was brave." Cautious words hung in the air. But how do you expect them to open up? Everyone's so used to playing pretend. Her question struck him like a revelation. It laid bare the very essence of his challenge. Initiating vulnerability demanded a collective leap of faith, and he alone couldn't shoulder that weight. He had hoped for shared responsibility, but truth be told, fear had become a powerful adhesive keeping everyone locked in their own narratives. "Maybe we could do something together," she suggested after a pausing moment. "Like a smaller group to start." The idea wormed its way into his mind, igniting a flicker of creativity. What if we held a workshop? Just to explore, well, whatever comes up. Ava's brow furrowed thoughtfully. That could work, but do you think people would actually come? His confidence teetered as he considered her words. He recalled the uncertain faces scattered throughout the auditorium, envisioning their reluctance. But then he remembered his own vulnerability exposed in that moment on stage. Wasn't that what he was asking of others? Their willingness to step into the light, however frightening it might seem? "I guess the only way to find out is to try," he replied, embarking on a conversation with renewed vigor. Together they brainstormed ideas, their minds racing with possibilities. Maybe by breaking the concept down into smaller, manageable workshops, those who yearned to be heard could take the first steps toward connection. As they spoke, uncertainty faded into determination. The prospect of failure remained, but that feeling paled beside the potential for growth for both himself and his peers. He was beginning to understand leadership wasn't solely about seizing the spotlight. It was equally about creating an environment that encouraged authenticity, one voice at a time. Yet shadows lurked in the back of his mind. Would the vulnerability they encourage invite actual honesty, or would it merely peel back layers to reveal more masks? He recalled the confidence with which he spoken just earlier, but now doubt gnawed at him again. How could he ensure what they built was a space of true trust, rather than fleeting camaraderie? "Let us do it," Ethan declared suddenly, the realization racing through him. "Let us figure it out together." As they strategized their next steps, a surge of purpose energized him. He was no longer merely an actor in a performance. He was a pioneer, However, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. The deeper he ventured into this pursuit of authenticity, the more he realized this journey could threaten the very facades he sought to dismantle. Gazing at Ava, a new challenge formed in his mind. Could he engage others beyond their comfort zones without pushing too hard? How would he navigate the complexities of each indifference-laden conversation? As their laughter and brainstorming continued, he sensed the complexity of leadership stretching before him, a blend of excitement and fear. The exhilarating thrill of transformation mixed with doubt's cold breath. What awaited him on this unpredictable path remained a mystery, with his own resolve as both shield and sword, and perhaps, just perhaps, he had barely scratched the surface of what it truly meant to lead. With a tentative leap forward, he felt the pull of these new aspirations. Would this emerging journey redefine them all? Or might it lead him to confront those more resistant to change? The unfolding reality hung in the air, electrifying and daunting, setting the stage for the real test yet to come. The following days merged into a blur of planning and self-doubt. Time slipped through Ethan's fingers as he readied himself for the new workshop idea with Ava. Each conversation unfolded like a fresh sheet of paper, yet the blankness felt suffocating at times. He immersed himself in research on effective communication and group dynamics, fervently hoping to unearth strategies to overcome the barriers he feared would stifle their project from the start. As he took notes, a chilling thought clawed at his composure. What if they failed to foster the authenticity they envisioned? Doubt whispered incessantly, questioning his ability to lead. One evening, surrounded by half-finished notebooks and the remnants of half-drunk coffee cups, Ethan confronted a harsh truth. He found himself staring at a blank page, flooded with unformed ideas. It wasn't just the fear of inadequacy toward his peers, it was the prospect of inadequacy toward himself. The leadership he longed for demanded more than just motivational speeches and organized workshops. It required an ever-evolving understanding of himself and others. In a moment of impulsively driven resolve, he reached out to his classmates, telling them about Ava's idea and inviting everyone to participate in the upcoming workshop. Responses varied from enthusiasm to skepticism. A few dismissed his efforts, suggesting he was naive for thinking their fears could be dismantled in a mere workshop setting. The thin skin of his confidence tore slightly with every uninterested reply, but deep down, he recognized that apathy might speak louder than rejection. Ava noticed Ethan's spiraling thoughts during their planning sessions, reading his discomfort between the lines. "You okay?" she asked one afternoon, her voice gentle but probing. "Yeah, just," he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "What if they don't show? What if this whole thing is just wishful thinking?" She considered him for a moment, her eyebrows knitted. "You're asking them to be brave. Do you think they'll embrace that?" "Maybe some will," he replied, the weight of reality settling on him. "But the ones who won tea, what about them?" "There's only one way to find out," she said simply. Ethan felt a flicker of admiration for her steadiness. She might not know every answer, but she was wholly committed to the journey they were embarking upon. Her faith offered a brief reprieve from the storm of his doubts. Emerging each day from the cocoon of uncertainty meant confronting the possibility of failure. But it also seeded seeds of determination in his chest. As he readied for the workshop, he began to visualize the space not as a stage for himself, but as a sanctuary where honesty could flourish. Could that pursuit alone merit the risk? The day of the first workshop arrived, and Ethan stood in the room, a nervous knot twisting in his stomach. The chairs faced his faux confidence. What if they trickled in to fill those seats but ultimately buried their anxieties under layers of silence? Would anyone dare to share? When they began trickling in, some faces were familiar, but others were strangers, exactly the audience he had wanted to reach. Each set of eyes carried its own story, its own potential for connection. Each whisper of doubt started to dissipate with each head that turned toward him. Just as he stood ready to start, a figure lingered at the door. The intensity of their gaze sent a shock through him. It was Jordan. The familiar face of his once encouraging friend now stirred a blend of excitement and fear. Would he support Ethan? Or had the winds of skepticism changed the warmth of their connection into something icy? "Hey," Ethan called, voice wavering slightly. "You here to join?" Jordan hesitated, scanning faces before meeting Ethan's eyes. "Maybe," he said, a careful reply that cut deeper than he expected. As the group settled in, Ethan felt an urgency brewing inside. The time had come to take the leap he had been questioning. He opened his mouth to begin, and in that moment, with so many eyes upon him, he faced his greatest challenge, stepping, not just into the role of a leader, but into a space of vulnerability that required his own raw honesty. Would stepping into that light guide others, or would it further expose his fears? The atmosphere thickened with expectation, and he grasped for solace in his gathering intentions. Ethan took a deep breath and steadied himself. For the first time he realized it wasn't purely about encouraging others. It was about unearthing pieces of himself he had managed to conceal. The journey to leadership was unfolding in ways he had not yet begun to grasp. And just as he opened his mouth to speak, a sharp voice cut through the air, leaving him suspended between what he thought he could share and the truth that might just change everything. "What if I told you I don't believe this can work?" Ethan's heart raced, the sharp words slicing through his thoughts like a shard of ice. He glanced toward the source of the challenge, Jordan's skeptical gaze fixed on him, unyielding. The unspoken tension settled heavily in the air, electrifying the atmosphere. Each second stretched, amplifying the weight of expectations around him, built on hope and fragile dreams of connection. "Look," Ethan began, striving for composure, "I know this isn't the most traditional approach." His voice wavered slightly, betraying the tumultuous thoughts swirling inside. "But I believe that the only way we can truly connect is by confronting our fears head-on." Jordan's skepticism masked any hint of warmth that had once characterized their friendship, and Ethan felt that shiver of doubt wrap around him again. Yet, scrabbling against the confines of self-doubt, he pressed on. "This workshop isn't just about me talking to you. It's about us, all of us, being real with one another. If we can't start somewhere, where do we even begin?" A few heads nodded in hesitant agreement, while others remained unconvinced. Ethan could feel the urgency in the room intensify, like a pressure building before a storm. It was an inescapable reality that this workshop could fail or flourish based on their willingness to engage. His gaze flitted to Ava, who offered a subtle nod of encouragement. That simple acknowledgement reignited something inside him. "What's at stake here?" Ethan continued, rallying the laboring breaths of courage within himself. "Real connections take guts. It won't be easy. People may share things that cut deep. But when was the last time we were truly honest, not just with one another but with ourselves?" A moment of silence engulfed the room. Ethan could sense the palpable shift as a few murmurs passed between participants, the craving for authenticity stirring like a hidden flame. He could see it in their eyes, a cautious yearning for something more, something layered beneath the masks they wore. "I would love to hear from you," he said, gesturing toward Jordan, desperation creeping into his voice. "If you don't think this will work, why not share your thoughts? I'm open to criticism. I need to hear it." Jordan's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, the two shared a charged silence, charged with untold histories and suppressed anxieties. "Honestly, it feels naive," he replied, his tone clipped. "You really think a few circles and discussions are going to change anything? People don't just unmask overnight. This is idealistic at best and delusional at worst." Ethan's heart sank, but there was power in Jordan's honesty, a blessing cloaked in brutal truth. This was exactly what Ethan had invited them to embrace: vulnerability. "You're right," Ethan admitted, feeling the ground beneath him shift. "It's a risk. But sometimes the greatest transformations arise from the most absurd ideas. The commitment to be open is the first step. Can we afford not to try?" Jordan remained silent, but the room had shifted subtly. Some faces reflected intrigue, while others revealed the discomfort of awakening to the possibility of change. "Let us do something different," Ethan suggested, pressing forward with newfound determination. "Before we dive deeper into discussions, I'd love for everyone to share their name and one worry or fear they've been carrying. No judgment, just honesty." As the first volunteer, a quiet girl spoke up, her voice almost trembling. "I fear nobody will listen." The tension slowly unraveled, the barriers that separated them starting to blur. One after another, fears cascaded like dominoes, each one adding weight to their collective vulnerability. Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration as he guided the exchanges. The workshop transformed around him. The walls he had feared would fall away began to build bridges instead. Each confession stripped away layers of pretense, replacing it with something tangible: connection, raw and real. Still, a lingering anxiety curled in his chest. He wondered if the tide of honesty would hold, or if Jordan's skepticism would prove true. After the last voice trembled to silence, Ethan stood back, absorbing what he had initiated. Confrontation was inevitable. It was the catalyst that urged participants toward authenticity. Yet, the deeper challenge awaited him back in the unknown layers of his own reluctance. As he took a moment to gather his thoughts, Ethan realized that the journey had only begun. The workshop's success or failure would reflect not just on them, but on his willingness to embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. In this pursuit of transparency, could he also acknowledge his own hesitations? In that stillness, as he gathered his thoughts, an unexpected guest entered the room, bearing consequences he could never have anticipated. Would this presence turn the tide of their exploration, or would it resonate with fears he'd yet to confront? Ethan's breath caught as a figure stepped into the room, a silhouette framed against the dim light. It was Claire, his mother, an unexpected intrusion that sent a flurry of questions spiraling in his mind. What was she doing here? The anticipation in the air shifted, and even Jordan's skepticism transformed into curiosity. "Ethan," Claire said, her voice steady yet laced with emotion, "I'm sorry for interrupting." She looked around the gathering of strangers and friends. "But I needed to see you." Ethan's stomach twisted. Each reason for her presence fired up his anxiety. The weight of their unresolved past loomed heavy between them. The last conversation they had was rife with anger and misunderstanding, an argument that had pushed them further apart. "Can we talk?" she asked, her eyes softening, pleading with him silently. "Now," Ethan replied, hesitant. Claire nodded, her vulnerability making him question every impulse to retreat. In that moment he felt a deeper layer of conflict surfacing. Could he confront her like he asked his workshop participants to confront their own fears? Or would his own anxieties compel him to avoid the hard truths? "Actually," Ethan announced, "more to buy time than plan a strategy, I think." "No," Claire interrupted gently, "I don't want to take away from what you're trying to do here. But I need to share something important." The moment passed, the tension palpable as everyone in the room turned their attention to them. Each participant leaned in as if hungry for this unforeseen twist, a spectacle that brought their own vulnerabilities to the forefront. Ethan glanced at Jordan, searching for reassurance amidst the turmoil rising within him. He wanted to turn and shut the door on Claire's intrusion, but there was something in her eyes, a hint of sincerity that diffused his simmering anger. "All right," Ethan said, steeling himself, "let us talk." As he took a step toward her, he was hit by the magnitude of his own internal struggle. The overwhelming urge to recoil, to mask his emotions, gripped him. But confronting such raw truth was what he had challenged the participants to do. Perhaps this was another opportunity to lead by example. "I've been thinking," Claire began, her voice trembling slightly, "about the choices we've made, about the distance between us." There was a sorrowful reflection in her gaze, a hint of regret that made Ethan's chest constrict. "When I learned you wanted to help people connect, I realized how much I wanted to connect with you again." Ethan was silent, torn between his longing for reconciliation and the bitterness of their shared past. The last few years had molded him into someone she didn't recognize, someone who had lost faith in her absence. "Mom," he started, inhaling the weight of her admission. "Do you understand what you did? How it felt when you left?" "I do. And I'm so sorry," she said, her voice cracking with the strain of emotion. I thought I was doing what was best for our family, but I can see now how wrong I was. I lost touch with you and I've been regretting it ever since." The room felt charged, every face reflecting the straining connection between mother and son. Ethan sensed the need for honesty, both for himself and his mother. He had been asking others to confront their truths, he had to do the same. "Maybe I was too angry to see your side. But finding this connection again feels like trying to build a bridge from nothing," Ethan replied, each word heavy with unrequited hopes yet steeped in a desire for reconciliation. "This is why I came," Claire emphasized, her voice rising slightly in passion. "I want to rebuild whatever we've lost. I want to understand you, to support you in this journey you are on." Ethan struggled with the deeper revelations swirling within him. How could he begin to navigate this new territory of vulnerability that extended beyond the confines of the workshop? He felt a flicker of hope igniting within, but it was tempered by uncertainty. What would it mean to open his heart further, especially now? He had laid the groundwork for others to face their fears, but facing his mother's presence cracked open new vulnerabilities he had long buried and that charged air. Ethan questioned his next steps. Was this the decisive moment to unite their fragmented lives, a turning point in both their journeys? And just as he contemplated this, a phone buzzed in the silence. Glancing toward the source, he noticed Jordan taking a quick glance at his screen. Was it a distraction or an urgent message? All eyes turned to him, and Ethan felt an electric charge pulse through the air. What was once a moment of personal confrontation now held additional layers of uncertainty. What new turn would this unexpected intervention bring? As he looked back at Claire and then to Jordan, Ethan realized the very foundation of connection was poised to be tested in ways he hadn't anticipated. Would he step forward and embrace the chaos of reconnection? Or would he draw back into the safe shadows of his past? The true journey was unfolding, and he felt ill-prepared for the uncharted waters ahead. Ethan's gaze darted between his mother and Jordan, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. He could feel the intensity of the moment pressing down on him, a constant reminder of the expectations clawing at his reasons to back away. He needed to make a choice. The urgent prick of Jordan's phone buzz was now just noise in the backdrop of a storm brewing within him. It's about connection, he thought, channeling the principles that had guided his workshop. This was not solely about what he could teach others. It was about what he could learn from his own pain. Perhaps this reunion was the very confrontation he had encouraged his participants to embrace. Could this conversation lead him not just toward acceptance, but to understanding? Claire, he said slowly, if we are going to rebuild, it starts now. The rawness of his words surprised him, revealing the yearning he had for that connection he once took for granted. You're right, Claire replied, her expression softening. I've been so selfish, focused on my journey, not yours. I want to hear about your life, your work, your dreams. It's time for me to be present. Ethan took a breath, the words tumbling through a labyrinth of memories. The anguish of her absence was still fresh, but beneath it was the fragile thread of hope, woven by the possibility of recalibrating not just his relationship with her, but his own understanding of forgiveness. I've dedicated my life to helping others navigate their pain, he said, voice steady. But I still feel lost. He glanced around the room, once again engulfed in the audience they had drawn together, their shared vulnerability a soft echo of his own. I've been hiding behind my role as a facilitator, trying to avoid the mess I'm currently standing in. The ripple of his confession resonated. It felt grounding, tearing down the walls he had built. Claire nodded, a mixture of empathy and acknowledgement in her expression. She understood the gravity of his struggle. Then let us face it together, she offered. I've been afraid of what I might find when I face my own past. But I want you to know I am actively working on my own journey of healing too. Can we even trust each other? He asked, a hint of skepticism creeping into his voice. He had seen so many relationships unravel under the weight of unaddressed, festering cracks. Claire paused, collecting her thoughts. Trust is built with action, Ethan. I want to earn it back, as hard as it might be. Her vulnerability stirred something deeper within him, coaxing out the shadows that had taken root over the years. Perhaps this was a chance to not only reconnect with his mother, but also to reshape the narrative of his own life. To learn that acceptance was not synonymous with forgetting, but a combination of confronting pain and embracing transformation. Then let us commit to this, he said firmly, commitment blooming in his chest. Let us take the steps toward repairing our relationship, even if it terrifies us both. As a sense of agreement started to form between them, Ethan felt the pressure ease just slightly, a breath of fresh air diffusing through hard-won tension. Ethan, Jordan broke in, his expression serious. Can I speak with you for a moment? A wave of apprehension washed over Ethan. Jordan's tone suggested an urgent divergence from this pivotal moment. What could Jordan possibly say that would pull him away from this significant step towards healing? Ethan glanced at Claire, her expression flickering with uncertainty. Just a second, he said, stepping aside but keeping his focus on her. The weight of unsaid words hung in the air as he approached Jordan, instinctively calculating the consequences of this interruption. Listen, Jordan began, his voice low and intense. Something's come up that could affect everything. Ethan's heart sank. Why now? In the midst of one of the most delicate moments of his life, He felt the precarious balance shift, imperiled by uncertainty. Should I worry about what's happening? Jordan leaned closer, revealing the tension in his posture. We need to address this whatever it is. It's bigger than us. Ethan hesitated, darting another glance toward Claire, her eyes searching but resolute. Could he afford to unravel this newfound momentum with more chaos? But as curiosity flared within him, he realized this could also serve as a testing ground for what lay ahead. With that thought, he set his jaw against the unknown. The real journey was proving far more complex than he had anticipated, but he was steadfast. What was this other reality that threatened to disrupt his tentative connection? As he nodded at Jordan, newly emboldened for whatever was to come, he understood that true growth often occurs in the presence of uncertainty. And uncertainty was about to rear its head anew, demanding his focus yet again. What was waiting on the other side? Ethan stood at the precipice of a new chapter, uncertainty flashing like electric currents in his veins. The courage he had summoned to connect with his mother lingered in the air, the essence of vulnerability tinting his words. Yet the appearance of Jordan holding unspoken burdens loomed like a storm cloud over the fragile optimism developing between him and Claire. Let us talk outside, Ethan suggested, glancing back at Claire with an acknowledgement that their reunion still held promise, despite the shadows of interruption. The hallway offered a brief reprieve from the awkward intensity swirling in the room. Once they stepped away, Ethan's heart raced, his anticipation palpable. What's going on? He asked, seeking to understand the urgency etched on Jordan's face. There's been talk, Jordan began, tension building in his voice, about your workshop. Some people think it could lead to something bigger, or worse, could affect our reputations. The weight of his words settled heavily between them, igniting Ethan's disquiet. The perception of his newfound direction brimming with authenticity wasn't he universally welcomed. What are they saying? Ethan pressed, wrestling with an urge to protect the community he deemed to cultivate. That you're diving too deep, too fast, Jordan replied slowly. Some think it's naive to challenge the status quo. They see our group as threats to these social walls we've built. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. The life he envisioned was now intertwined with critics and fears he had yet to address. So what do we do? Jordan's expression shifted, revealing a glimmer of support struggling to emerge from his skepticism. We need to determine what we truly believe in, not just for ourselves but for those watching. When these vulnerabilities build, so do the stakes. Are we prepared for what follows? Ethan's determination crystallized, sharpened by the reflection of difficulties ahead. This was the essence of leadership, confronting conflict to forge authenticity. Yes, he affirmed, a determination surging within him. He envisioned the potential for real connection, a dismantling of barriers that stifled their shared voices. As they returned to the gathering, a resolve solidified within Ethan. Despite the noise of doubt threatening to blanket their efforts, he knew that embarking on this journey was a commitment to himself and others. Let us redefine what it means to be vulnerable and brave, he declared, stepping back toward the group. Let us hold the space for each other, to explore these fears, and find our footing together. The participants leaned in, capturing the charged moment that radiated through Ethan's words. A flicker of hope ignited. Vulnerability was a revolution waiting to be embraced, even if it was laden with uncertainty. As conversations surged and grew, Ethan felt a profound connection develop, his vision expanding both within himself and the community. He fostered moments that encouraged genuine expression, creating a tangible atmosphere where honesty flourished. Each shared story became a building block against the innate pressures of their social environment. Simultaneously, Ethan held on to Claire's presence in the room, aware that their tentative reconstruction mirrored the unfolding narrative of collective healing. The warmth of reconciliation ignited within him, recognizing that true leadership embodied not just guiding others, but confronting personal fears alongside them. Weeks passed, each workshop steadily redefining connection. Jordan remained a steadfast advocate, participating through hesitant support evolving into genuine belief. Tensions morphed into tools for growth among peers, gradually untangling the confines of pressure that had previously silenced their voices. Then one day, during a particularly moving session, Claire spoke up to share her journey. I've learned that rebuilding doesn't just mean facing what we lost, but also acknowledging what we gained through our challenges, she confessed, eyes glistening. I'm proud of the courage Ethan has shown. It's inspiring." In that moment, new layers of healing unfolded between them, a delicate balance of forgiveness and emerging admiration. Ethan felt a shift within as Claire's words resonated. He had conquered the fears of estrangement and doubt. He achieved a profound recognition of not just his journey, but the collective growth that had blossomed through shared vulnerability. Months later, as he scanned the room filled with laughter and shared stories, he experienced the fulfillment of his aspirations manifest before his eyes. He had successfully created a safe space of empathy and camaraderie, where each participant could embrace their complexities, no longer bound by the shadows of privilege. And within himself, Ethan emerged with solid confidence. No longer just a name on an invitation, he found an established position in his community, a recognized leader not defined by status, but by the authenticity of his heart. This transformation was a testament to profound growth and genuine connection. He conquered the inner battles of doubt, emerging with a renewed sense of purpose. The trepidation that once gripped him faded, replaced by a burgeoning strength rooted in shared experience and new beginnings. As Ethan stepped out into the world beyond the walls of that once distant auditorium, he knew there was no returning to the shadows. He had forged a path illuminated by bravery, and the echoes of vulnerability embodied the journey that awaited him. Now the time has come for you to embrace your journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that fuel personal transformation, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about the ending, because your thoughts matter in this community. Let us continue to foster understanding and support one another on this journey.